Angela Marie Fullmer, known as Angie, was born on February 28, 1968. By the time she was 34, Angie was living in Mount Shasta, California, and was the mother of 5 daughters, whose ages ranged from 7 to 17. She also had another child that she gave up for adoption. Angie had worked at a pizza parlor in Mount Shasta, but was unemployed in December 2002. She'd struggled with alcohol for many years, but always hoped she could quit one day. Unfortunately, a drunken weekend would prove to be deadly. On December 14, 2002, after spending the weekend drinking, Angie and her ex-boyfriend, Thomas O'Connell, decided to go for a drive to the Twin Pines area near Lake Siskiyou, just west of Mount Shasta. After leaving at 2:45 in the afternoon, her friends and family would never see her again. Thomas said that while they were out, the two of them got into an argument about mud that had been tracked into his pickup truck. Upset, Angie got out of the truck and started walking away through the forest, heading toward South Fork Road, near an old logging road in the Twin Pines area. Thomas stayed behind to clean out his truck, and later said he heard what sounded like a car door slam and then an engine driving away. So he thought Angie had gotten a ride back to town from someone passing by. At 2:45 a.m., about 12 hours after Thomas last saw her, he called the police and reported her missing. At first, authorities thought Angie might have gotten lost in the woods, so they began searching the area, but bad weather made the search difficult. Over time, police began to change their minds and soon felt that she was most likely the victim of foul play. Angie's mother also believed that foul play was involved, and while many suspect Thomas, police said that he wasn't being considered a suspect in her case. In August 2003, a man walking his dog found human female bone fragments in the Shasta Trinity National Forest, near North Shore Road. This is near where Angie was last seen. Authorities initially believed the bones were hers, but they turned out to be cremains that had been scattered during a memorial ceremony. Not long before she disappeared, Angie asked her mother to take care of her children if anything ever happened to her. Angie Fullmer stood 5 feet 2 inches, with dark hair and brown eyes. She went missing on December 15, 2002, and as of November 2025, she remains missing, and this case remains unsolved. Christine Lindsey Walters was born on August 8, 1985, and grew up in Deerfield, Wisconsin. At the age of 23, she was a junior at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, where she studied botany and ethnobotany. Christine also taught Pilates and yoga classes and worked on an organic farm in Stevens Point. She enjoyed spending time outdoors and was known for her love of nature and went by the nickname Airy Meadow. In the summer of 2008, Christine decided to take a trip to Portland, Oregon, to visit friends and have a unique spiritual experience. She was feeling adventurous and free after a recent breakup. She'd planned to return home to Wisconsin, but instead, she abruptly moved to Humboldt County, California, with friends she'd met during her trip. Christine was supposed to return to Wisconsin in the fall to continue her classes, but she chose to stay longer because she loved the area. While in California, she became interested in spirituality, alternative lifestyles, and environmental causes. She kept in regular contact with her family by phone during her trip, and initially her calls were upbeat, but later they became more concerning. On October 28th, her mother asked her to come home, but Christine said she was on a journey and needed to follow her path. Then her calls became less frequent. She didn't have steady work and often asked her parents to send her money. Her father sent her $1,000, but she never withdrew any of it from her account. Unbeknownst to her parents, things were about to go from bad to worse. On the morning of November 12, 2008, Christine was found standing on the porch of a rural home on Tompkins Hill Road near Eureka, California. She was naked, confused, and had scratches from briars on her body. Tompkins Hill Road is roughly 20 miles from Blue Lake, where she'd been staying. The homeowner called the police, who took Christine to St. Joseph's Hospital. She told them that she was afraid and that someone was after her, but she didn't explain what had happened to her. She told authorities she had walked a long way, that demons could hear her, and that people were going to find her no matter where she went. She was tested for drugs at the hospital, but the results were negative. Was Christine having a psychotic episode? Unfortunately, the hospital didn't send her for treatment. Instead, they took her to the Red Line Hotel on 4th Street in Eureka. From there, Christine called her parents and made plans to fly home. She'd lost all of her identification and was working to get replacement documents so she could travel. On November 14th, Christine visited a copy center where her mother faxed her documents to assist her in obtaining a replacement ID. Staff at the copy center said Christine seemed nervous and tried to hide the papers. Sadly, this was the last confirmed sighting of Christine, who appeared disheveled and was possibly wearing a sweatshirt, hospital-issued pink pajama bottoms, and Crocs shoes. After 3 days of not hearing from her, her parents reported her missing. Her backpack was later found at the Green Life Evolution Center in Arcata. The center was run by the Green Life Group, which has been called a cult by many people and has since disbanded. Green Life confirmed that Christine had been there and said she stayed with other participants and rested, but left by herself on the evening of November 11, 2008, one day before police found her on a stranger's porch and took her to the hospital. It's possible she planned to return because they said she often left her belongings behind at the center when she went for walks in the Arcata Community Forest. Thomas Lout, an Indiana private investigator hired by Christine's parents, later found out more about her behavior before she disappeared. They learned that Christine had attended an illegal tea ceremony on November 7, 2008, 5 days before the porch incident. The ayahuasca ceremony was led by a shaman named Tito Santana and involved about 20 participants. Ayahuasca has deep traditional roots that contain harmine and DMT. Harmine is legal in the United States, but DMT is a controlled substance. In traditional settings, it's used for healing and self-reflection, though it can become risky outside controlled, supervised environments. Some Westerners who seek out ayahuasca describe profound emotional breakthroughs and a renewed sense of purpose, experiences that are very different than recreational use. In some people with a history of mental illness, it can trigger depression, mania, and even psychosis. However, it's unknown if the tea ceremony is connected to her disappearance, and law enforcement has not publicly backed up these claims, but they haven't denied them either. Someone allegedly spoke to the shaman who performed her ceremony, and he contends Christine is dead. This has led some to believe that she actually left with Tito Santana and is traveling around Europe with him. He was confirmed to be in Scotland in June 2010, and then later in France. However, there is no information that says Christine had a passport, and there was no way she could have entered another country without it. If you have any information about Christine Walters' disappearance, contact the Humboldt Sheriff's Office at 707-445-7251. Christine Walters disappeared on November 14, 2008, and as of November 2025, she remains missing, and her case remains unsolved. Courtney Nathan Jones-Botta, who went by the nickname Court, was born in February 1989 and was described as a genuine and respectful individual. The summer after graduating high school in 2012, Court spent a lot of time preparing to move from his home in Redding, California, to Chico to attend college. He was earning extra cash to help with rent when he got there by selling some of his BMX bikes. But unfortunately, that same summer, a horrible tragedy occurred. On August 16, 2012, at approximately 3 p.m., Court's mother dropped him off at a friend's house named Ashley Noble on Joaquin Avenue. He had a bike frame with him, most likely to sell to someone. About an hour later, he called his mother and asked her to pick him up from the same house. However, when she arrived about 20 minutes later, he was nowhere to be found, and the people there said he had left on foot. Sandra didn't believe this, as Court rarely went anywhere without telling her. However, after that day, he was never seen alive again. Sandra went to neighboring houses and called Court's friends, but no one had seen him since he left the house that day. After searching for a week, she reported him missing. Sandra felt something was seriously wrong and continued searching for him while the police did their own investigation. During one of her searches, she found one of Court's BMX bikes abandoned in some bushes down the street from where he was last seen, and a syringe a few feet away. Before Court disappeared, he was 23 and had been struggling with life. He had become involved in the party scene, and the situation had become serious enough that his mother encouraged him to seek counseling. So Court decided to make a change and take his life in a new direction. It wasn't easy, but Court wanted to change for the sake of his family. That's when he decided to enroll in college in Chico, California. 2 days after his disappearance, Heather Cameron went missing. While Court's mother, Sandra, found the timing interesting, investigators have said no connection between the cases has been found. Plus, her ex-boyfriend, Daniel Lusby, has remained the primary person of interest in the case, which to this day remains unsolved. It's unknown if Lusby had any connection to the friends Court was seeing that day, but it's of note that on the day of Heather's disappearance, she had called 911 3 times using Lusby's phone, claiming she was drugged with heroin. 11 years later, on May 19, 2023, Court's skeletal remains were found by a property owner in the area of Henderson Road in Redding on private property west of I-5 and south of Cypress Avenue, not far from the house he was last seen at. Despite the close proximity, the surrounding area of that house was never searched by law enforcement. The cause and manner of death have not been released, and after 11 years, toxicology was impossible. Rumors suggest that Court was given a hot shot, overdosed, and was buried near Henderson Road, just a few blocks away. A hot shot is basically a lethal dose of heroin, which is interesting considering Heather Cameron's ex-boyfriend allegedly attempted to shoot her up with the same drug on the day she disappeared. If you know anything about the death of Court Jones, please contact the Shasta County Secret Witness at 530-378-4491 or call the Redding Police Department at 530-225-4200. Heather Leann Cameron was born on August 11, 1984, and was a proud member of the Grand Ronde Indian tribe and grew up in Redding, California. Heather's childhood was anything but peaceful. Her parents struggled with drugs and alcohol, traumatizing her upbringing. To escape, she traveled from Grand Ronde to Redding, California, to stay with extended family. She then grew close with several of her cousins, and her parents later divorced. Once she was older, Heather married Sean Cameron and had 4 children. According to those close to her, she took great pleasure in being a mother and adored her children. However, the marriage wouldn't last, and she became a single mother. Sadly, she also developed a drug addiction. Her extended family began to grow concerned, especially after the drug usage introduced her to a dangerous crowd of people. Not wanting to put her kids through this, she made the decision to enter rehab. However, on August 18, 2012, she checked herself out of the program and was picked up by her ex-boyfriend, Daniel Lusby. They were going to Keswick Dam, a remote area popular with hikers. Despite the breakup, Heather and Daniel remained cordial and continued to run in the same circle of friends. Around 2:50 p.m., Heather made 3 911 calls from the remote area using Lusby's phone, saying she'd been drugged and needed help. Unfortunately, the dispatcher strained to hear her over the failing connection. The 911 operator could hear a male voice in the background, but due to the remote area's steep hills and canyons, as well as poor cell phone reception, the call dropped multiple times. Once police arrived, there was no sign of Heather. Immediately, search and rescue efforts were made around Keswick Dam and the Chappie-Shasta off-highway vehicle area, both on the ground and by helicopter, but Heather was never located. 2.5 weeks later, her estranged husband reported her missing. Over the next 2 years, Lusby would be interviewed by investigators a total of 3 times. During the last interview in April 2014, he was asked why Heather used his cell phone to call 911 on the day she disappeared. His response was that she had walked off and taken his phone with her. That cell phone has never been recovered. Lusby is considered a person of interest in her disappearance, but has never been charged. His criminal record in Shasta County Superior Court shows that he's been charged with 9 felonies since April 2012, 4 of which were reduced to misdemeanors. Also, the sheriff's office confirmed that Lesby had been in custody at the Shasta County Jail 11 times. His criminal records include an arrest for car theft, stolen property, and possession of methamphetamine in November 2012. Lesby also spent time on Shasta County's most wanted list until his arrest in 2015. Heather also had a criminal record in Shasta County, which included 3 felonies, 2 of which were reduced to misdemeanors. Heather stood 5 feet 6 with brown hair, brown eyes, and weighed 115 pounds. She had several tattoos, including tribal flowers on her back, a girl and a gun with tribal flowers on her calf, and an unfinished character tattoo on her right thigh. She was last seen possibly driving a gray, 4-door, 2003 Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck with California plate number 8Z75740. If you have any information about the disappearance of Heather, please contact the Shasta County Sheriff's Office at 530-245-6025. Heather Cameron went missing on August 18, 2012, and as of November 2025, she remains missing, and this case remains unsolved. Leslie Ann Porter was born on November 1, 1959, and grew up in West Covina, California. She was described as a very dependable and responsible woman. On June 26, 1982, Leslie married Michael Porter, who went by Mike. By all accounts, there were no problems in her marriage, and everyone said she seemed happy and open about her life. On the morning of January 19, 1984, Mike left their apartment to go to work. Meanwhile, 24-year-old Leslie remained home with plans to take her Camaro in for repairs at 10 a.m. She then planned to call her mother to come pick her up. She was hoping to get all this done before her shift started at the Robinsons store in Puente Hills Mall at 1 p.m. However, she never brought her car in for repairs, never called her mother for a ride, and never showed up to work. When Mike returned home later that day, he found her Camaro still parked in its usual spot untouched. He found the apartment door unlocked and Leslie's personal belongings, including her purse and car keys, still inside. Ominously, a pair of her favorite earrings lay on the living room floor. From that day forward, no one has seen or heard from Leslie again. Mike was at work when Leslie went missing, and afterward, he was very active in the search for her and tried to get media attention for her case. If you have any information about the disappearance of Leslie Porter, please call the West Covina Police Department at 626-939-8540 and reference case number 8400616. Leslie Porter disappeared on January 19, 1984, and as of November 2025, she remains missing and this case remains unsolved.